Hey everybody, happy day two. It's day two of the quarantine, and things are going a little nuts over here, but that's okay. Okay, so hopefully everyone had access to the assignments last night. A number of people got it done and got it done on time. So remember, try not to wait till the last minute to get that flip grid done. And do show me your reading notes in your flip grid. That is part of what I'm looking for. So for the first, until next week, the reading is going to be kind of like staggered off a little bit on due dates. But let me tell you what you're doing today. Today, on this video, there'll be a 5 minute lecture with some videos that I'll post in there for you that you'll want to watch, where we talk about religious extremism and the opposite of religious extremism, which I don't think has a word. And if it does, someone text me. Um, After this video, you'll notice there are three um, videos on Edpuzzle other than this one. The first is mandatory. It's my lecture on Israel Palestine, but I want you to do that after you watch the video on Israel Palestine. So watch that 10-minute video. You can't skip it. Just kind of take notes. You need to know the case study. So when you do watch my online lecture, you can actually skip through that one and and just reach the pertinent information on the slides. So I'm kind of explaining Israel Palestine as well, and you'll have had a better video of Israel Palestine. So just go ahead and skip through that one for the slides and the info. So the presentation of me is mandatory, but you can skip it. The video you need to watch. And then also you're going to see a religion review. Hopefully you go through that, at least take some notes on stuff you've already seen and haven't seen. Your test is tomorrow. Most people are signed up for the evening test. If you haven't signed up for the test, please do so. That video is not mandatory, though. I am going to highly recommend it. All of religion is on the test, and it's all just from your readings in the last like 2 or 3 days. So hopefully you get it all done. Anyway, let's go ahead and start. We got done talking about religions and how interesting and kind of cool they are, and how all of them are different. Black screen. Okay, pink, pink, pink. Oh, actually, I am going to have to skip ahead further. So we ended with animism, if I remember right. We went through some world maps. We were going to talk. We're going to talk today about the branches of Islam a little bit. So there are two main branches that you need to know: Sunni and Shia. And you just need to know them. Sunni is more kind of conservative. In terms of movement and action, whereas Shia is more conservative. Is that right? In terms of social interaction, a Shiite Muslim is going to be your more radical version that we talk about, whereas Sunni Muslim is, if you know Muslims, you probably know Sunni Muslims. They're just people. Here's a group of six, but you should know this all from the um, presentation. So you should notice Canada. Okay, so let's talk religion and conflict. So just like all cultures, when things touch each other, we find conflict. The most famous religious conflict, the Crusades, obviously happens where Muslim Arabs and European Christians meet each other right in the Middle East here. And we call those boundaries interfaith boundaries. Sorry, I'm just getting lost still. We call those interfaith boundaries, and those are boundaries between major religions. Intrafaith boundaries are the boundaries between the branches of a major religion. So, for example, for us, and you should know this, in the South, we have Southern Baptists. In the Midwest, we have Lutherans and Presbyterians and Episcopalians. In the West, we don't really have one church, but non-denominational churches, and those are all Christian churches, and they kind of have their own boundaries as well. And those are intra-faith, and interfaith boundaries are boundaries where major religions hit each other. And so we see branches of Christianity in Europe. If you look, it kind of sets itself up for conflict, right? Green is more Catholic, red is more Orthodox, and you can see that they're that they're kind of staying in there. We have our maybe our more Russian Orthodox influence here. We have our Pentecostals here up in Germany area. And then everyone else is pretty much more Catholic. And so obviously you're going to have cultural conflict because they've developed their own borders, even though you'll notice they don't match these written borders. These are borders. These are intra-faith borders of Christianity. Um, and you should know, and it's worth a Google because I'm going to just do a terrible job. The reason you wear green on St. Patrick's Day, happy St. Patrick's Day, by the way, is because of an intrafaith conflict between Catholics and Protestants. Take a look at the top here where we have Ireland. Oh, sorry, I'll use my mouse. Over here, you'll notice there's a big slug of blue Protestants and a whole lot of green Protestants. Well, this conflict has been going on forever, and it's actually been incredibly violent, and aggressive. So the Catholic Irish Catholics have pushed the Protestant Catholics all the way up to the north of Ireland. I'm going to pause and make sure I'm getting that right. Okay, sorry, I wanted to double check and make sure I wasn't getting people and religions mixed up. So in Ireland, there were two groups of Irish people. There were Protestant Irish, so like your sort of Christian Irish, and then there were Catholic Irish. And you'll see here on this map, blue is going to be your Catholic Irish, and the more red is going to be your Protestant Irish. And what happened was um, the Catholic Irish, who were signified by wearing the color green. Hey, St. Patty's Day is back. Violently pushed all the Protestants to the northern part of Ireland, and they kind of shoved them up in there. In fact, they'd kill them and murder them if they weren't wearing green. In fact, if you're a Protestant Catholic, you'll wear orange, and this is still going on today. In fact, we have the IRA, which is an Irish group, the Republic Army, and they're sort of a terrorist freedom fighter style group who are fighting for not control, but for recognition in Ireland, and it's sort of nuts actually. I'm gonna post this link on your Google Class or on your Edpuzzle, and you should watch it right now. But what you should see is that Ireland is in the north of Ireland, where we have these cultures that are touching the Catholic and the Protestant culture. You have things like street warfare. And I also want you to notice when you watch this video, thinking like a geographer, look at gender and what do you see? Look at age and what do you notice? Go ahead and pause and do that now. All right, cool. So now you've got kind of a handle. Hopefully, you took notes on what causes the causes of the conflict in Ireland, the effects of causes of Ireland. But we're going to move on. So now here's where we need to go through. This is Israel Palestine. You've got this on slides already. It really feels weird to be blasting through World War II like this. So these are the sort of things you need to pay attention to. Here are the questions you need to know, and here are the causes of all this conflict. We have the video on Jerusalem there, but that's for the online video. So here's a word you need to know. The word is syncretism or syncretism. And syncretism is sort of the synchronizing of religions over time. There are syncretist churches, and there are churches that have actually taken parts of religion and blended them all together. They're really uncommon, but if you think about it, many religions have a lot of commonalities. So, like the Golden Rule, for example, is in most of the major religions. But a syncretist church or syncretism is the mixing of religions into one religion. So we see this all over the world. Sometimes when those barriers touch, they bleed into each other. I told you about Hitesh, my friend who both believes in God and practices Hindu religion. And that's a syncretic action. Kind of neat. And maybe that's the end. And that group, by the way, there's only one or two churches in the world who've done that, are called the Baha'i. Just something important to know. That's their church. They really went with a plain design, huh? Anyway, looks like a lotus flower. It's kind of cool. Anyway, they're called the Baha'i. And so here's where we really need to talk, and a lot of people blame religion on conflict and war. In fact, we see that religion has caused a lot of conflict and war. But the truth is that most religions teach similar values. Most religions have a lot of stuff in common. Be kind to others, be kind to the earth, um, all sorts of things. And so when we see this conflict, we're actually not talking about the religions themselves, or we shouldn't blame the religions yourselves. What we should blame is fundamentalism, is what we call it. And fundamentalism is the literal interpretation and strict adherence to the basic principles of religion, meaning they only follow the exact words of the Bible or the Quran or the Torah or whatever. And the examples of this are the things that you've heard that are scary. Sharia law is the fundamentalist interpretation of Islam. That's when people blame Islam for terrorism, they're actually talking about Sharia law terrorism or Sharia law fundamentalists, which is just a small group within there. Um, and we see that in the Middle East all over the place, but we also see a bunch of other type of Muslim and Islam adherents. And so we don't want to blame religions on fundamentalists. In fact, we see fundamentalism all over the place. In America, we have fundamentalist sect of Christianity. I'll post this link right here, but you don't have to watch the whole thing. We have the Westboro Baptist Church, and the Westboro Baptist Church are the people who are protesting soldiers' funerals. They're people who are lighting fires in other churches. There are people who have used the name of the Christian God to do really awful things, and they're fundamentalists as well. Abortion is an issue they care about. Gay marriage is an issue they care about. Many care about the availability of contraception. They would prefer the lack of availability of contraception. In fact, fundamentalism in the United States is kind of an old story. The KKK was a religious Christian group, and they were fundamentalists. So don't blame the religion for the actions. Yes, then we'll just move on. So we have other styles to kind of avoid that conflict. States will do a lot of different things. One is secularism, which is a doctrine rejecting all religion, especially in the government. Like we have the separation of church and state. That's a form of secularism, but that can cause conflict, right? Because now you've created a border between believers and non-believers, and what happens at borders? We have conflict. I'm going to do like Dora the Explorer. What causes conflict? Borders. Anyway, so a great example is there was a huge uproar of teaching evolution in American schools, and there are some states that don't teach it still, or that they have the option to teach, or they have to teach both creationism and evolution in church. That was fundamentalist Christians pushing government policy. And so, I mean, it happens everywhere. And fundamentalism truly is what causes the most intellectual barriers, right? The most distancing. And so then when those two fundamental groups meet, there's obviously a lot of conflict. Um, there are tons of conflicts that happen over secularism. For example, in France, they, for a hot second, tried to outlaw hijabs, which are the covers of a lot of Middle Eastern women, the head wraps. So, like anything from just a scarf over the head to a close to a full face cover. And they said it was because they didn't want religion. They wanted to be more secularist, and so in being secularist, they stripped people of their religion. So it's kind of an interesting give and take. So taking a look here, the world's least religious countries, this map should remind you of something, actually. I want you to kind of think for a second. And it's the opposite of a map we often look at. Isn't it kind of cool? Okay, so let's talk about communism. I'm going to post this. I won't post this video. I'll just explain it to you. So secularism can also, oddly enough, be a form of extremism, especially in communist governments. So we're going to talk about the Soviet Union and China. There's a problem with religion, and if you're a communist government, you need a strict adherence to the well-being of the country above all things, right? Well, what's the problem with religion is it says, hey, actually, there's this thing over here that is more important than anything else in the world. In fact, JFK was the first Catholic president of the United States, and people thought he was going to listen to the Pope instead of doing what was right for America. So the religion is sort of this threat to countries because it offers it offers a set of rules that maybe the country doesn't agree with. Well, if you're communist China or communist Russia, um, you're not going to be a big fan of that. And so both have done things to outlaw certain religions. In fact, China right now, and if you get a second, Google it, has is sort of isolating and killing a group of Muslims called the Uyghurs. So you should know that communism and religion really don't go together, and that secularism, it can be a form of extremism because it can be the elimination of religion. Okay, that's all today. I know that was a lot for me, pretty boring. Um, Check this out. You should check those reviews. Okay, uh, don't forget to do those other videos and study for your tests is all for me today. Bye.